Hello, welcome to Holistically Speaking. My name is Morella DeVoe and I'm your host tonight. Thank you for tuning in. We are approaching our second year interviewing some of the best practitioners in the Burlington area. And tonight our guest is Sherri Blebus. Sherri is a tarot and divine feminine consultant. Welcome, Sherri, to our show. Thank you for being here. My first question, how I wanted to get started, is by hearing a little bit of your story of how you got into tarot and doing this kind of work.
Well, I was 31 years old and I had just escaped a very unhealthy marriage. And that particular time in a person's life is called their Saturn return in astrological terms.
Yep.
So I felt like I was starting a brand new life, and it just popped into my head one day. You know, it just like the tarot would be a great tool to use on this new path, which is exploring my own intuition and empowering myself in that way.
Had you ever had any experience with tarot, or was this just out of the blue?
It was out of the blue.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah, although I would say I've always been a mystic in the sense of prolific dreaming and having premonitions and being tuned in that way.
So it just naturally kind of unfolded for you, I imagine, after that.
Yes.
So I would love for our viewers to, for my own curiosity, but also for our viewers to hear a little bit about what is tarot. If you could tell us a little bit of the system of tarot. I know there are all kinds of different cards. There are 4 different suits, I think, and like the major cards, is it the major arcana or something like that? Like the Tower and the Death card and the Fool and all of these different cards. So can you tell us a little bit about how tarot works and why it's such a popular tool for facilitating intuition?
Well, I call it a wisdom system. It's basically a picture book of life. It pictures life on every level, mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And it also includes these major archetypes of human beings and human development, which are the 21 major arcana that you mentioned. And then the 4 suits are cups, wands, swords, pentacles, and those represent earth, water, air, fire, emotions, physical life.
Oh, interesting. So each suit represents one of these dimensions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So cups is the emotional, psychic realm. Swords, the mental, logical, communication. Pentacles, earth, body, the physical realm. And wands would be the spiritual realm, or our energy.
And so how is it that all of these, like these cards, when you're laying them out, and maybe you can tell us about your decks, but when you're laying them out, how is it that they help you tune into intuition or read them in a way?
Well, being a picture book of life, they're a great divination tool. They're probably one of the most complex tools used for divination, because the practitioner has to become familiar on many levels with all the cards, and then read them intuitively once they are laid out. So it's kind of a science and an intuitive art at the same time. And how it works, that's a mystery. Human beings have been practicing divination in various forms for as long as we know, from the beginning of written history. So that, you could say synchronicity, you're communicating with mystery. There are many ways to look at it, but nobody can say for sure, this is how it works.
So I can imagine you must have tons of stories of ways in which it's worked for you or for clients. So do you have a favorite story of yours that illustrates how well this can work for someone?
Yeah, I don't have a favorite story, but I'm always just blown away. Last night I did a party. I read at a party. There were 8 women, and they came down one by one into the bottom floor where I was sitting, and every woman, from what I heard later, came up the stairs saying, "Wow, that was great. That was right on." You know,
That's
so
amazing.
I'm just amazed pretty much every time.
Right.
Because it's not me, you know, I'm seeing myself as a channel. You
Yeah.
know, obviously I've mastered the deck and I have my own way.
Right.
There have been times though where I've been very accurate about specific things that were really blown away. I once predicted a pregnancy, you know, I usually don't go there, but it just came out. I said, it looks like your daughter's pregnant. And,
Oh, wow.
and then the woman called me 2 days later because her daughter had just called her and told her she was pregnant. So yeah, lots of little stories like that, and that's what gives me the confidence
Yeah.
to do this professionally and be out there talking about it, because I believe it works.
Yeah, and what you're saying makes me think of, do you ever encounter any either, oh my gosh, I'm blanking, any fear or any doubt in your work? Are there people who maybe don't want to do a reading with you because of any anxiety of what you might say?
Right. Well, I wouldn't want to read for somebody that didn't want to, but I get reactions when I tell people what I do. There's a lot of fear, like, oh, I don't want to know what's going to happen, which always makes me cringe because I don't see myself as a fortune teller.
Yeah. What I was going to say was skepticism. I was blanking. So I can imagine that there are some people who are skeptic of
absolutely.
Of what you do. Now, you also talk about doing work with the divine feminine and being somewhat like a divine feminine consultant. So tell us a little more about that work and how is it related to tarot?
Well, around the same time that I picked up the cards, I started a graduate program through Union Institute, which I designed myself, studying the divine feminine and the role of the divine feminine in social and ecological justice. So what does it have to do with this? Well, that would probably take 10 hours to explain what the divine feminine is, because that means so many things. It has meant so many things over time and culture.
Yeah.
But for the purposes of our conversation, we could put it into sort of the metaphor of if the divine masculine. We could talk about it as qualities. So if the divine masculine is the head, then the divine feminine is the heart.
Yeah.
And then many people are familiar with the left brain, right brain concept, which has been confirmed by science. And the right brain sort of is the seat of our logic, you know, how we order things, classify things, think analytically, rationally. That would be considered the masculine. And the right brain is that chaotic interplay of creativity and intuition, you know, the seat of where we connect with mystery, or what we might call the divine. That would be considered the feminine part of the brain.
And so in your work, what is it that you facilitate for people with regards to the divine feminine?
Well, I teach workshops in tarot and divine feminine, and I facilitate deepening one's understanding and relationship with the divine feminine through the tarot deck and using it for that
Wonderful. And so, can you tell us a little about how some of the people in your workshops start to connect with the divine feminine through their practice of tarot and what that might look like?
First of all, I explore where the divine feminine is in the tarot, what it is, what people personally feel that it is to them.
Yeah.
And then I use various goddesses connected with certain cards.
Oh.
Yes, like justice, the justice card. It could be Mot, the Egyptian goddess of justice,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And I have participants do readings for themselves where they ask what goddess is calling to them or wants to reach out to them. And then I use the mythology of the various goddesses. So, I mean, it's a 10-hour workshop altogether.
And do you use a particular deck for that type of workshop, or can any tarot deck do? Because I know that there are different types of tarot decks.
Any deck will do.
Oh, wonderful.
But there are some decks that are wonderful, around women's spirituality and feminist spirituality. The Mother piece is one that people use a lot, and I use for myself.
Yeah. Is there a favorite deck that you have?
I use the Crowley deck, which I have here in front of me for my professional readings, and so that's probably my favorite deck.
And do you have a particular reason behind it, why you love it?
I love it because it's so packed full of symbolism across culture. Not to mention the paintings are spectacular.
Yeah. So the image in itself on the card helps to facilitate what's coming through.
Yes.
And as you were saying earlier, with tarot being so complex, I know I bought a deck once with the whole booklet and instruction. It was so overwhelming. There's just so much information there that, I just take my hat off facilitators and intuitives like you who are just so gifted at kind of stepping aside, because you were just saying earlier how it just kind of flows through you, right?
Yes. I see myself as a channel primarily.
And you teach people how to become channels themselves through your workshops.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Everybody has intuition, but what I hear over and over and over again is I don't trust my intuition.
Right.
And I think maybe that's inherent in our culture.
Yeah. So how would our viewers know that they would benefit from going to a workshop of yours? Like, a lot of people would consider themselves non-intuitive. So who are the people who are just the perfect candidate to be at one of your workshops?
I think someone who's open. I mean, really, that's all. That's the only requirement: open and interested.
And curious.
And curious.
Yeah.
Yes, some people are curious. I do a tarot talkers group in Burlington once a month.
Oh.
And some people come who don't even own decks. They're just very curious.
Yeah.
And I think if the curiosity is there, there's a reason for it.
Right. And so for those who already have their own decks and are maybe playing with them, do you have a few suggestions or ideas of how they might get better at it?
Well, first and foremost, some kind of practice to strengthen one's intuition is necessary, and that's not, it doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah.
Simple meditation, 5 to 10 minutes a day of just sitting quietly, doing nothing. That's a good start.
Right.
Keeping a journal, paying attention to dreams. There are a lot of ways to open up one's intuition. And then the other trick is to be aware when your analytical mind is stepping in.
Right.
Because the analytical mind will override sometimes or change your intuition. And as soon as you start doubting yourself or coming up with another interpretation of what you see, then you've blown it. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
so basically quieting down the mind is the key.
Yeah. So earlier I was wondering if the people who are most drawn to work with you, either in private consultations or in your workshops, are mostly women. And maybe because you were talking about the divine feminine and the goddesses, that maybe viewers might jump to the conclusion that it is for women, but probably not, right?
No.
Do
No,
you,
it's not.
what's the mix, would you say?
Well, I've only had one man.
We need to convert them.
I know, take the Divine Feminine class.
Yeah.
No, actually, he took my 6-week Tarot for Life class. So, obviously it's not for women. I do think and women don't have the jurisdiction on the Divine Feminine either.
Right.
You know, if we think about it as qualities, it's just, you know, these are just qualities of being human,
Right.
and experiencing life. But it's mostly women who come.
And how can we help men to come more into the realm of studying the Divine Feminine and maybe working with tarot and the Divine Feminine?
I think I think a lot of the time women push men away because for so long the religious scene has been so male dominated. That with the sort of revolution of women's spirituality, women, you know, claimed it as theirs.
Right.
Although I don't think it was that way, you know, in pre-Christian times.
Right.
So I think maybe it's up to women to be more open
And inclusive.
and welcome and inclusive and yeah, you know, and at what point women will feel comfortable sort of letting the men in again. It's not up to me to say.
Right. So what's something that perhaps you've come to see differently about life or about yourself through tarot and through your work?
I think the biggest thing is that connection to mystery, which I think the many the monotheistic religions have an intermediate. So you go through them to connect with the divine or the great mystery or great spirit or whatever you want to call it, God, goddess. And using the tarot is a direct route to that sort of communication, connection with that which is greater than us and unknowable ultimately.
Wonderful. Something occurred to me, and I was wondering if you might pull a card for our viewers and maybe see what that's about. I don't know, would that be something?
Sure.
That maybe our viewers in general might get some benefit from. And this is your favorite deck. I'll just...
Yes, this is the Crowley deck.
Because it has
it's
all
big,
the images.
as you can see.
Okay.
And would there be a particular question or?
Well, just with the intention of a little bit of wisdom for all of our viewers.
Okay.
And my favorite deck from an astrologer that I've worked with actually is the Goddess of the Moon deck.
Oh, yeah.
It's so beautiful, and
Yeah.
I figured that's something you've seen because...
Yes, I want that deck. They're
So-
round.
Yes. So
Okay.
let's pull a card.
We have a card. It's the Nine of Wands. Am I able to show it? Or,
Yeah, right there.
Nine of Wands, and you can. This is perfect. This is perfect because this is a picture of strength of spirit through the balance of the masculine or solar ego consciousness and the feminine or moon intuitive underworld consciousness.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So this is a perfect picture of protection, ability to act with wisdom.
Wonderful. And it speaks to me also of the balance of, obviously, as you're saying, masculine and feminine, of inviting our male friends into tarot, and also of seeing the divine feminine really as a way to balance ourselves and bring more balance into our lives and the world. I don't know why I'm saying that. But
Because that's exactly why I feel called
yeah.
to that particular field. Because I personally feel there has been an imbalance overall, and we could talk about that forever too. That has to do with religious history and cultural history and so on and so forth.
Right.
But I feel that this is why there's this really amazing interest in divination, in the divine feminine, because people are feeling it.
Yeah.
They want more balance, more wholeness.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you want us to take away from the show tonight, all of us and our viewers, as to something to start with maybe this week, some practice or some tip or something that you'd like us to take away?
Well, I would really love people to not see the tarot as a fortune-telling tool, and see it for the wonderful wisdom system that it is. It's wonderful to use for divination, but also personal and spiritual development, and growth. And there's the study of tarot itself is the study of life on many different levels.
Right.
So I just invite people to open up to that.
Yeah. So, just a kind of a side question on that. Obviously, I hear from you the benefit in terms of seeing the mirror of life in terms of the mental and the emotional. But you also mentioned the physical. Have you had experience of like physical healing or physical insight through tarot that was concrete?
Well, people often ask me health questions.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a tricky place because I'm not going to diagnose them.
Right.
But I had an experience actually last night, which was so satisfying for me and the other woman, where she was asking about health, a health issue that she was having.
Yeah.
And I did the reading, and I so clearly saw these aspects of her life that seemed to make sense as to why she was experiencing these symptoms.
Oh, wow.
And for months, she had been going to specialists and doctors and getting all kinds of tests and getting nowhere.
Wow.
So I told her what I was seeing, and it all clicked for her. She's like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like, no wonder I'm experiencing this.
Oh, how beautiful. What a gift to her.
Yes.
So, Sherri, I know you have some resources that you wanted to share with our viewers, of some workshops and some other tools. So they can see that now. Do you want to tell us about them?
Yes. The next Tarot Talkers group is going to be Tuesday, March 26th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the Firefly Gallery right here in Burlington at 200 Main Street. This is open to anyone who has the slightest interest And you don't even have to have cards. You can come, and it's very casual. And then I'm teaching a more formal 6-week workshop at the same place, the Firefly Gallery, beginning Wednesday, April 3rd, 7 to 9. So that'll be 6 consecutive Wednesdays.
And that's your website?
Yes,
there?
my website is tarotinsights.vpweb.com. And I also have a Facebook page, Tarot Insights.
Wonderful. Great. And there was a book, I think, that you had mentioned, with the
Tarot for Yourself?
in the Secret Life, Tarot for Yourself. Oh, it's in a film, sorry.
Yeah.
So Tarot for Yourself and The Return of the Mother were 2 books that you
Yeah,
had.
these are just 2 of my favorite books. The first one is a classic. It's the very first book by Mary Greer that taught people to encourage people to use tarot for themselves.
Right.
Yeah, and then she updated it in 2001. So I always recommend that book.
Wonderful.
And the other is The Return of the Mother by Andrew Harvey, which is, a thick book. And he's a mystical scholar and a mystic himself. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful read if you want to really not just know but feel what the Divine Feminine is.
Right. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Sherri, so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
I'm wondering if there's any last thing that you might want to share with us before we wrap up. Well, thank you again for joining us. And thank you for tuning in as well. I will be back with you in 2 weeks. Next week, we'll have Chloe again as your host. And if any of you are parents and your teens or kids are interested in joining our wellness essay contest, email us at holisticspeak@gmail.com to get the rules for the contest. And winners are going to join us here on our show. So thank you again for being with us, and good night.